we have a lot of data in our hand, but we don't know how to ask them also. Mine them is how can a dashboard save enterprise several $1 million? I mean, can you talk about some of the aha moments that you saw the data and the insights and you were like, wow.
You cannot imagine anything which has nothing to do with numbers. When I'm scanning these numbers and I see, oh, this data is not even correct. So I have implemented a AI tool.
There is a lot of term associated to data nowadays, called as data analyst, data engineer, data consultant, data AI.
I'm very close to a decade and I'm still using SQL. It is still relevant, and I'm going to tell you and I'm going to vouch it 100% that SQL is here to stay.
My first external course was also SQL, and I learned that 15 years ago.
And whatever you learn on your job, nobody teaches you better than that. If you need to have a credibility put to your face, that certification would just give you like a license.
You have to learn to ask Google, or you have to learn to ask
So
ChatGPT.
there's always a leverage of a human mind. See, we need to remember that we are the ones who have created AI, and AI have not created us. We should use a tool as long as it is useful, not beyond its capacity.
Picture yourself in a big meeting, data on the screen, but it's not telling you the story you need. Your business analyst looks frustrated, your boss is confused, and you are stuck with a clunky tool that just won't cooperate or won't quickly help. Do you feel the pain? If so, this video is for you. I'm joined with Harveen, a stellar data analyst who saved companies millions of dollars with her Power BI expertise. Power BI is nothing but a Microsoft product for analytics. Along with that, she possesses amazing stakeholder management skills. In this episode, she will reveal how data analysts and business analysts dive together, work together to generate and drive decisions. Why AI is your best friend and how is it key to speeding up and standing out in the field of data analysis. And if you want to become one of the AI-powered data analysts, then yes, you can definitely reach out to her. And finally, why this field is here to stay. Watch this episode until the end. It's going to be very interesting. But before you may move forward, make sure you subscribe and like this video. Let's dive in.
Hi, Harveen. It's a pleasure to have you on my podcast. Let's rewind. Wipro to KPMG, that is from India to Canada, a huge leap. What's your story? You knew that data analysis will be so huge?
Hi, Afaq. First of all, I'm really glad to see you. And, we've been planning for this podcast for so many months, and something, is coming up. And I'm really excited that finally we have come to this day when we are making it execute. So, yeah, I mean, the journey, not just from like Wipro to KPMG, but again from two continents, has been quite a role, like quite an interesting journey with full of, ups and downs. And I never thought data analysis would be so big, because if I tell you about my background, I have done engineering in electronics and communication. To be, yeah, it comes out as a shock also to people, but I did that in electronics. So I remember it's not that I went to Wipro. I always say that Wipro chose me, because every person from IT or computer science field was, gearing up for this placement drive, that happens back in India in the, like in the seventh semester. So they come up with these companies and big names. So because I had a merit score right since my, like we have a concept of 10th and plus two and the board concept in India. So I had been a meritorious student, and all my scores were in the top five CGPA of all the 4 years of my college. So one of my mentors in the college, they said, "Oh, why don't you just go and appear for this campus placement?" I said, "But would I be eligible, or how is it going to be?" He said, "Of course, they have to check your score anyways." And Wipro had its own procedure, like they were taking quantitative aptitude test for everybody, and because I was on the merit list already, so I skipped that part because I was directly offered the interview round. So it's like that, when things have to happen naturally, so you'll just make your way out, and then you're not expecting it. So I did for that interview, and there was this one section I was supposed to write. It was an essay. So I did that. I had an interview, and then they selected me, and that's how the journey of Wipro started. So they called me for internship, and in the eighth semester they called me to Delhi, and they trained me basically for SQL and data warehousing. So that was a phase, like approximately 9 years ago, when SQL came into my life, and it still is there. So that is why I say I didn't choose it, they chose me, and I've been just consistent with it. And that's how this journey has been quite intriguing, from like, one step to another.
In my case, also, when I started to complete my graduation, I was on the verge of completion. We didn't know where to get into the thing. We knew that we are going to be software engineers, but should we develop? Should we make
Yes,
robots? Should we do certain things? But I think in my case, it was more of a guidance that was provided to me that, hey, why don't you choose to get into database, learn this? And I gradually grew my interest. To be honest with you, my first external course was also SQL, and I learned that 15 years
oh,
ago. Not even 15, I think maybe 17, 18 years ago, I did the entire certification of Oracle, SQL, PL SQL. I think there used to be a big book of all of these things.
big book,
And I
yes.
must, and my first job was in SQL. I was a SQL developer back in India.
Oh, that makes two of us actually, because
Yeah.
my first job was also SQL developer in Wipro.
But the thing is, I never moved into the SQL related projects so much, although I
Mhm.
did many AI related, data related, data analysis related, but I did not stick around to just data project. I kept on moving from one to another. Your career has been with so many clients, right? From bank, insurance, automobile, healthcare. Does analyzing data for so many years surprise you yet? I mean, can you talk about some of the aha moments that you saw the data and the insights and you're like, wow.
Of course, when I said that I started my journey on the job, I have never prepared for it theoretically. And I think that is the biggest takeaway I have from my career so far. And this is something which I would like to also share with everybody who is listening, that whatever you learn on your job, nobody teaches you better than that. You go to any Udemy course, any YouTube video playlist, okay, that helps you, that is also important, right? They can give you a different perspective to solve things better. But what you learn on your own job with the projects that you've been assigned to is the best teaching. So the relation with these numbers, and fascinating that, if you just look in the hindsight, there are just 9 digits. Okay, just 9 digits and infinite combinations, and you just get one digit wrong and entire transaction record. Why I'm saying transaction? Because of banking things would just come up with this, the what I'm going to say next. So just 9 digits are just ruling the world, I would say. And especially in today's world, you cannot imagine anything which has nothing to do with numbers. If you have numbers, you pick any area, be it real estate, be it banking, insurance, healthcare, whatever, your credit card bills. Of course, you want that number to be as small as a digit, but the reality is something else. So the games of number is always fascinated. And because my line has also been in a banking project. So in a banking project, there are a lot of sensitive data we need to deal with. And every minute there is a transaction. Sorry, I would say every second there is a transaction happening. So I've been able to work on these projects where I have, monitored live data, and I've also made reports out of it, you know. So that has been quite a change in my career. So I would say if somebody is interested in this field, they should be in love with numbers.
So much of data that I see. And I think only 1% of the world data is actually ever analyzed. Uh, is this my correct analysis? And most of the data is not even converted, not even governed, not even converted for insights. All of those things are actually lost. Those conversion of the data into insights definitely gives a lot of users those slow moving things, actionable results out of it. And yes, I think there are many moments within the company also that I have noticed when they see their own insights, they realize that there is so much of things that they can do that can accelerate their business. Now, in your 9 years of career, have you, I see that from your LinkedIn, you've done Power BI, Azure certifications. Any certificates that you think relevant, and are they still very important that one should take?
With the certifications journey, and how important or unimportant they are, I've always been in a fix, because I was of that opinion that are certifications relevant, and it comes from an organization to an organization perspective. if you talk about in today's perspective, like why certifications are important and why I would suggest people to do it. See, having worked in two continents, I would say in India the importance is not as much as it holds true here, you know and that's a reality. I don't know if I should say it or bluntly, because it depends from a market to a different market. But I'm assuring you that yes, it is very imperative, because if you need to have a credibility put to your face, like if you just meet me and if I'm interviewing for some company or a project, how will I validate my skill set? So basically, that certification would just give you like a license. You're driving a car. One can say that, I drive a car very nicely. But if you don't have a G license, you would still be, your car would be taken, or you still would
Very
be
much true.
questioned, right? So this is as similar as that. People would see, they won't even see you if you don't have a health card. So the importance of these little, cards that we have is basically as important as we need certifications, to stand out. Especially in today's market, which has become so competitive. We all know that what North American market is going through. Even for example, if you just do an experiment to apply on a job, on LinkedIn, and in 1 hour you would see more than 100 applicants apply. You would see these things. So it's like, how would you stand out? Nobody has the time to go through those 100 profiles. I'm telling you, recruiters don't go through those 100 profiles. I have taken interviews. So if I have to look at a resume, okay, I would first of all the thing which is going to highlight my eyes would be, oh, how much this person is validated. One of the sections I would say would be through a certification. So, and not just that, because it attracts the recruiters, but it also, there has to be reason that why the CEOs or the directors of the company have implemented this thing, right? Because we need a license. We know you can prove. After also seeing the certifications, you still be interviewed, right? It's not that you will be
Absolutely.
skipping that part. You will again be evaluated. There are assessments that you have to finish. So the steps have become larger, but that just gives you an edge over something. Like every actor has an IMDb rating. It's like that. So it's just an IMDb
Uh,
rating for us. It's
I
that's
completely agree. I think it happens the same case for business analysis also, and I think I'm pretty sure for the others also. These certifications are either the entry point into the line of field that you want to enter, or it's a credibility that yes, you are amazing at this and you have certified yourself and you want to stand out in terms of the thing. Power BI, I mean, I know it is used to create dashboards or analytics. Most analysts make pretty great, good looking dashboards. But you mentioned in your LinkedIn that you saved several millions. So I just want to catch the point here and I ask that how can a dashboard save enterprise several $1 million? What is that magic? What can a Power BI actually answer that can actually save companies? How does the logic work behind the scene?
see, I would say Microsoft has named this tool very efficiently. Power BI. It's giving power to the business intelligence. It's giving you that fuse in the back end. So people, even for today, I've seen many clients, stakeholders who are not from technical background. They're heavily dependent on Excel sheets even today. You see, and there are many big names also.
Many. I
Yes.
think today even the billing is done on Excel. People write many things on Excel. Excel has left a long impression on people.
Yes, it is a traditional and it's a basic, and it is going to stay there even for the coming decade. I would say at least a decade. Yes, I can vouch for confidently. So, giving a power tool to an Excel makes it Power BI is the definition I would like to articulate in one sentence if I can. So the company which I was working for, one of the projects where I've mentioned the millions part, is that they were again heavily dependent on spreadsheets. Now it's very complex, okay, because it was one of the oil and gas manufacturing client, and they were basically dealing with a lot of transportation globally. So all those globally, like if, suppose it's coming from continent A to continent B, and this entire is coming into a table. Now that Excel table is a two-dimensional thing. You cannot add it up or you cannot layer it up. Of course, there are many developments in Excel, and even if you just check right now, there's a data analysis section on MS Excel. You can just click on that and you will see. because every tool keeps upgrading, and that's the power of Microsoft as a company. So but it's not as efficient. Suppose if I'm not coming from a numbers background, I'm not coming from a technical background, I don't even know how to write a formula in Excel, I don't know what pivot or unpivot means. Let's assume that Power BI is just a drag and drop thing. It's just a click on click thing. So if you just click from one screen to another and something else opens up, Power BI just gives that a person. I was about to say a student, but yes, we all have been students. So it gives a stakeholder that leverage to just create, and play around the numbers, play around the facts as you like it. And of course, it's very attractive, as you were mentioning, that people create really beautiful dashboards and all. You can color code the numbers using that. If, for example, if this particular country is not performing well on the transportation part, you would mark it as red. Something which is performing really nice, you can mark it green or any color. They give you the entire gradients. So it is very appealing visually. So that gives very, a user friendly environment. And the most important feature which I've noticed, that you can just drag and drop all columns or rows into a Power BI matrix. There's an option to export it to Excel. So it's a reverse engineering. So what used to happen that if you want to, two options are coming from Power BI. Either you put Excel to Power BI and make an interactive dashboard, and if you're not able to comprehend the complicated CSV spreadsheet file, you just create it into a Power BI, see that all clearly, and then export it back just to modify it. So that flexibility it gives to a user is the most important feature of this tool.
Making a good dashboard or appealing dashboard may not actually help the business, right? What could go inside the Power BI or analytics that actually provides that kind of value to the business that actually saves a lot of $1 million? Because I understand that if you're converting from Excel to Power BI, definitely your workflow is fast, the data that you see is fast, your analysis is fast. Beyond that, what does Power BI can answer that actually helps organization? I mean, can you give me some use
Yeah.
cases around it?
So the thing is, that project was basically building up that inventory report was there on Excel. And because it was a global project, they were dealing with multiple currencies as such, euros and dollars. So there was one spreadsheet dedicated to euros and one to the euros, and they were basically creating a chaos. That okay, if I have to see everything in euros, because the European market I was dealing with, they are very firm on their currencies. But in a global perspective, everything, the standard currency which we use is USD. As we all know, we all do that conversion. That's a threshold for all of us. So they were, going from one place to another, and of course, it's time consuming. And every time it's a manual thing. Every time you have to make an entry, you have to remove an entry, you have to search and then delete it. Which every all these manual work is reduced in Power BI, that you can only pick, okay, I want this column, I don't want this column, I can just remove it, and nothing is going to happen on the source. The best part is it only happens on the BI. So your source is as good as clear as original, nothing is happening there. So man hour is reduced. When man hour is reduced, it reduces the cost, because the time is also an asset when it comes to IT results. You cannot just say that, okay, if I'm saving money, if I'm saving resources, saving time is also important, because we have some deadlines, and every time I've worked on is agile methodologies, where we have a sprint of 2 weeks and there are the targets divided. So when you divide your work, when you segregate your works into smaller sections, and then okay, you give this task to somebody, give this to another person, and if you combine it all at the end of the day, that's how you're going to save your time, that's how you're going to be more efficient. And that's the beauty of upgrading yourself to Power BI or tools such as these visualizations. That's why they came into the market.
So let's talk about the development process of the dashboard, right? How do you take the requirements of the dashboard? um, how does that KPI actually come to you that, hey, Harveen, this is what we want to develop? How does that requirement come to you?
From people like you who are our BAs. So
Okay, can
basically,
you can you please explain? Because see, I know that a BA typically works to gather the requirement, but yourself also an analyst, right? So how does that differentiate?
So first set of meetings are always done with the BA. Then we come, we come in the second phase basically. So that's why I would be really interested to discuss with you that how important it is for a BA to be a technical person in today's market. You just cannot be a non-technical person because BAs is just not about documentation. It has changed. So this is something which I have observed in my own tenure. So, see, I have been in those stakeholder meetings also when we are basically working as RFPs, that we call as request for proposals. There are projects when we basically want to bring a client to our company. This is, I'm talking from my consultancy experience, that we basically sort of create a document and we give them that, okay, we would need these many developers, we would need these many testers, how many resources we would need, and with what experience those resources which would come, because it all involves cost. Secondly, what are going to be the timelines? Okay, that if I am doing this project for somebody in 3 months, there's another client who's pitching up and says, oh, we can do this in 1 quarter, or let's say 2 months. So that's how the pitch comparison happens. That's how the roles, that's how we get projects, and that's how we do the billing or the building up of the dashboard. That what is our proposal basically. So in that proposal, BAs, of course, and the project manager and the data analyst, they come. The usability of scientists and engineers, they would come at a different level. Yes, we basically trouble them with our requirements, and I really agree to it, that those are the people who are basically doing the technical work. But how do we convince a client that, okay, why you would choose me for this project? What am I bringing to the table which somebody else is not? And so the other part of your question, which is again my point number three, when you were asking me how a dashboard is developed. So one of the main features is it has to run fast. That means it has to be efficient. Okay. Secondly, it has to be visually and user friendly. If you give a lot of automated options, Power BI gives you an option to basically switch from one place to another. It's like if you click on one graph, it opens up to another sheet which gives you detailed in the table form, that okay, why this graph was showing as this big line or a small line. It's because of the backend data. So it just gives you everything on just one click. So if you're able to deliver that, making it aesthetically beautiful also, it attracts the thing. And of course, it's a cost effective tool. It's very Power BI is something which a person who has spent a basic in IT can learn, and it's not difficult, I'm telling you. So that is one of those things, that's how we basically get to the building and development of the dashboard. That's how we get projects.
I will talk about the area that you highlighted where BA jumps in. Having worked not directly on dashboards but on the ETL side, I see that there's a lot of process behind that we work. And of course, we need technical people like you or maybe the data engineers to basically help us provide the data. Now, a requirement comes to me and they say, hey, we want a dashboard, let's say completely new, has it needs, let's say, 5 KPIs, one from geographical location, sales data, segmentation of the products, anything that could be. And that requirement, I mean, I look into why do you need it, what is it going to help you. My first question is like, why is it going to be of a value? Do you have it repetitive somewhere? And then it comes to answering, do we actually have a data to show? Because there could be a lot of things that you can ask, but maybe I don't have a data. So got to talk to people like you, data engineers, to understand if the data exists. And then we start to make prototypes, write requirements, either in the form of user story or the BRD or any other process diagrams or maybe any database diagrams or anything like that. And we do prototypes for dashboards. We create dashboards, we tell them this is how it's going to look like. Do in Power BI, do we have dashboards, I mean prototypes?
Yeah, we do have prototypes, but in my experience, I've worked on tools such as Visio and Figma. Figma is like my favorite tool because I've also developed those wireframes, as we call it. That okay, this is how we would navigate. This is how a basic layout of dashboard would appear as. And you have highlighted a very strong point that first our intention is how do we convince a stakeholder that yes, this visual would be cost effective and this would be it would be tedious on the cost. So do not implement it because we can provide an alternate to it. Okay. So for example, they just wanted one table which has, I think, more than 50 plus columns, and you just have to, slide it to the right and right. It was not looking good also, and it was not efficient. Okay, because they also mentioned us that it has to go to a stakeholder which is not coming from a technical background. So I basically gave them the idea of using a tree map. So what does a tree map does is, if it sounds technical, you can just let me know. So just one diagram, it's like there are big boxes. So the biggest box will show the biggest data number, and the smallest box will show the smallest number. So just by hovering your mouse on that visual, you see, oh, America has performed the best. Oh, means China has not performed that much, so it's coming into a smaller box. So I mean, these kind of visually giving them alternates, which also give them a fresh perspective that how I can basically show it on a visual. Similarly, if we talk about the geographical KPIs, so if they could come up with, see, they don't know the tool. We have to educate them that this is the power of this tool. So just give us that time so that we can just demonstrate you. In this role, BA and DA, collaborate, and then they work together. So my BA would come up, the client is asking for these many KPIs. So how is it? Now I would say, yeah, it would look quite numerical. So hey, why don't we give them a map? There is a map visual in Power BI, and it shows from one location to another. So you will see how the trajectory is flowing from A location to B location. And you know what? If you want to show a lot of cost, like this is a profitable A to B, so the line of the graph would be thicker. But some country transaction which are not doing well, the line would be thinner. So just by the volume of that simple line, you can see, oh, this country is not performing well, yeah, or this quarter was not good because that last quarter is showing me a thicker line. So I don't know if I'm able to articulate it nicely or not, but it's
No,
just that,
absolutely.
yeah, but it's
I
just
can completely relate. I was, while you were speaking, I was thinking that imagine a row with 50 columns or a data of million records, and you are displaying it on the geographical location map and pointing, saying that America has this much number of sales, Canada has this much sale, Mexico has this much, India and many other countries. Imagine that within like a second, the moment that map shows up, you are able to see the entire data or the insight. That would be very difficult. And this brings to an important point that you're highlighting, that as a BA, I might not know what, I mean, Power BI data analyst like you can actually build a prototype, and you can suggest that, hey, you know what, tree map would look nice, or a geographical map would look nice, or maybe a heat map would look nice, or maybe a table, a pie chart, or a bar chart would look nice. I can only present the requirements, and I need help from designers, or maybe people like you who can articulate that data into more insightful. And then I take it to the client and say, hey, this is good, this is not good. Maybe we suggest trying out with this one. You have to learn to ask Google, or you have to learn to ask ChatGPT.
that's true.
In today's world, we are not actually, we have a lot of data in our hand, but we don't know how to ask them also. Mine them is one of the thing. So that actually brings me to one aspect, Harveen, that I want to know. A lot of analysts uh, do, they call themselves data analyst or perform data analysis, whatever the title is. But what do you think most, or one activity that data analysts waste time, and instead of doing or spending time on something which is very useful?
If you're talking about today's aspirants who want to be a data analyst, if I've recollected your question well, they all talk about fancy things like, oh, we should know, as we were mentioning, that AI, and we should know about Power BI, or something else is coming up. But we actually forget the basics, and I would say the basic is SQL. When you learned it 17, 18 years ago, when you were telling me SQL is how, I started my career. And uh, I'm very close to a decade, and I'm still using SQL. It is still relevant. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to vouch it 100% that SQL is here to stay. It's actually the Bible, or the Gita, as we say, of data analysis. If you don't know the basics of SQL, you cannot develop a report. Be it Tableau, be it Snowflake, Azure, these are just the modern upgrades of the SQL. The branch of the tree, the root, I would say, not these are the branches. Sorry, the root is SQL. So if you do not know the basics of it, or if you don't know how I can basically retrieve a query, then I think it's really tough.
So what I understand from you is that at this point, a lot of people are actually spending time, or data analysts are spending time on visually making the reports or dashboards appealing. Rather, they should spend time on the foundations, SQL, or the practical experience of how the dashboards or things will look like, because that is where the cruxes, that is where the insights will come. And they are important, and not that the visual appeal can happen later, but if there is no data, there is no insight, this entire KPI or the question or the dashboard may fail.
See, when I develop a dashboard myself, when I was telling you about all these instances of how visually appealing you can make a dashboard, this is the last step. The first step comes is how my data modeling is, how I've created or cleaned my data. First of all, the cleaning process is there. If you get also fruits or vegetables, or if you're consuming meat, the first thing is you wash it off. You just don't put it in your pan and you start cooking it. It's as simple as that. You are cooking data here, so you will not just start building on the raw reports. See, I've worked on a lot of data migration projects, which where the clients are given me in text files and even in Excel files. So these were the two basic forms also which I've worked upon, and I have cleaned the data. Writing SQL procedures that, okay, if I want to clean my data, for example, there's one numerical field. So this part is going to get a little technical, but it's very important here,
Hmm.
that it has to be just 9 numbers. For example, it has to be a numerical code. And there was some in a manual entry because they're coming from a text format which has nothing to do with AI or nothing to do with tool improvement. So there were some alphabetical characters in that column. Okay, so manually you cannot scan when there are more than thousands and millions of records. You need some script that, okay, you have written as SQL query that if you find characters in alphabetical zone, please rule them out. Please let me know the list of the characters which are not coming correct. So SQL output used to give me that output that, for example, 15,000 have invalid numbers. So I used to give it back to the client that, can you either replace it or should I just put zero here, so that we don't proceed in this incorrect manner. It could give you errors at a very later stage when we will not be able to move back. So the initial step is that, as if you do improvements on the very quick stage, that is the best thing you can do. So data cleaning is the most important thing. Then data modeling, how you're creating a relationship. You've heard about a lot of these famous terms called as star schema, snowflake schema. It's a most
I
famous
remember
interview question.
from
Yeah,
Oracle data warehouse concepts, I
yeah.
used to learn about all of these things.
So how do you make that star? What does a star signify? That, okay, there is one fact table and you're attaching all these dimensions to it one, and the relationship has to be from one place to another. It can't be many to many. It's like one, like chart number A is connected with B, and then B is connected back to A in some other way. This whole chaos, first of all, Power BI rejects it. It just doesn't allow you. Because Power BI, the best part about this tool is it doesn't make you a bad data analyst, because whenever you're trying to do a mistake, it would give you an error. You are doing a mistake, you are doing it wrong, you know and that's how the importance of this, when you were talking about that, I feel that it's very important for a BA to have a technical knowledge, because I have been in such conflicts in my projects that this relationship part. I was creating a model, so one of my BA says, "Oh, it's not giving me numbers." I said, "Because the relationship from them, that those two tables are not correct, so we need to correct it." It's okay. Just he said, "Oh, let it go. It's showing the result. Now you can ignore it." I said, "I cannot ignore it. I mean, this is not how the method is."
You
So
need data, and data speaks
yeah,
volume.
data speaks volume. I said, for now the report would work, but listen, I can't name the person. It's like, if after 3 months, the data keeps adding. Data will never stop. If I'm developed something on 15,000 today, it would become 15 millions. Okay, and especially coming from a banking thing, banking's data always increases. It never decreases. The history becomes bigger with data. So I said, okay, now we are good for now, but after a quarter, you can't ask me to correct it. So why are we complicating it? So it has given me into a lot of conflicts that, how do I convince people who don't know about this thing that how this is how rightly you can make a data. So the visual things
Absolutely.
come in the very last stage. So that's why you should know SQL, you should know Power Query Editor. That's basically the coding part of Power BI. So that's very important.
1% of the data has only been analyzed. So much of still pending. And internet is growing, data is growing. And with this in introduction of artificial intelligence, especially generative Gen AI using LLMs, what do you think the part of these AI based LLMs, how can they help our traditional data analysis to speed up?
The most important feature from these things which we can basically use as a human is to cut down the repetition process. Because as a human, if you are doing the repetitive task, you are consumed by doing this repetitive task every day. Like if you have to monitor a transaction, so why don't I create a job? I used to create a job, like just to schedule it, so that you don't have to see that every time at 5 p.m. you have to click, and then only the execution would happen in the back end. So now AI is doing that thing for me, so that whenever the transactions get repetitive, some tool or some feature I have just sent to my tool who's taking care of these repetitive tasks. That is one use. And as I said, that a human error can happen, when I'm scanning these numbers and I see, oh, this data is not even correct. So I have implemented a AI tool. Means when I was telling you about the experience which I've done years ago in a project where I have only written SQL script to scan and then send it back to the client that please correct those numbers. So that step cut down now because I'm using AI for that. That please scan the entire data, because there is no limit to an AI. There is no limitation to the data. You can send them infinite data and they would say, okay, we will scan. If something looks bad, they would just report it. They would just trigger an email and it would just directly come to me. So these are the things when scanning, when repetitive task, and of course when daily transactions are happening. Like every second, banks are doing a transaction. You are taking out money, you're doing shopping, whatever. So in those tasks, monitoring AI can play a great feature. Like whenever you basically are writing your password in any of the site, you would say, "I'm not a robot." Option comes up because when there is a bane of something, there's also sorry when there is a boon of something, there's also a bane. Every coin has two sides. So because of this AI, a lot of scams have also happened. So I'm not it's just not a good part, also a bad part. It's just that human scanning is there. It's important, so you should just make use of a tool as long as it is advantageous. If
I
it
see.
forgets its power, if it forgets why it was being developed, why it was being designed, then it can be disastrous. We have seen many movies on robots. We have seen robots getting crazy and burning the
I know.
house down because the programming was changed. See, we need to remember that we are the ones who have created AI, and AI have not created us. So there's always a leverage of a human mind. So we should use a tool as long as it is useful, not beyond its capacity.
I think here the topic of the ethical AI or a proper use of the AI, looking into not letting the company data out to the AI. If you have internal LLMs, internal GPTs that can actually help you perform the Gen AI related stuff, then training them with the right amount of data can potentially, and using a proper use cases like running the hypothesis, doing some kind of experimentations will actually, I feel like if a proper training is given to people, this Gen AI can speed up, as you mentioned, or can help accelerate the work that a data analysis can do. Of course, an eye is needed, but a data analyst may be taking 5 days. That work can be done in one day. Of course, with more, proper training in eye over it, proper governance, and these things can actually speed up and do wonders. And I think today in today's world, the new terminology has come up called as AI powered data analyst.
And to that point, I would just like to add something. As we were discussing about the advantages. I have a lot of information. I have a lot of data, but only my technical skill set would not be, competent enough. I need to have a great communicative skill set as well. So if I have to explain those numbers to somebody in a very easy manner, if you can, it's a very famous quote. If you can explain to your project to your 5-year-old child, that means you know your tool. That means now you're successful. So we basically lack the articulation quality. We basically lack the correct communication ways. So if you're putting all your information, just random information to your AI, that please create a story out of it. In that way, AI can help, to give your data a meaningful story so that you can present it to your business stakeholders. That's another advantage you can use of.
I think there are many courses, and you're right about it. There is engineering to prompt. So you have to learn how to ask GPTs, called as prompt engineering courses. LinkedIn has many, YouTube has many. There is a well-formed structure of how to ask the question to these GPTs and understand how you can retrieve it back. When you ask them smartly, they will do all of that job that you need to do and get the result out. I remember you were mentioning about Power BI also using such kind of prompts. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit there?
So Power BI runs on this coding language called as DAX, which we call as data analysis expressions. So we basically can connect to a SQL or a Snowflake if you want to do some queries. But once the data has come up on Power BI, you have imported the data, and now you have to make some changes, or now you have to do some calculations, or you want to create different columns. You don't want to use a traditional columns which has come from your data source. So in that way, how do you basically calculate is using DAX. So with AI prompts, right now in the latest feature of Power BI, you will see a tool. DAX is written on the left side of your tool. If you click on it, if you're just writing a type, oh, I don't remember the syntax. As a human, it is impossible for me to basically, memorize the syntaxes. And there, the use of prompts come up. That okay, if I'm writing calculate is one of the most famous DAX function, and so the prompt would come up, oh, after calculate you should type this, and then you should type this. It gives you that prompt on just by hovering of it on the screen. So it doesn't let you go wrong. That is the most beautiful part of this tool, and I cannot vouch lesser, as even if I try to, that it cannot let you go do any mistake. So
Hmm.
that's a prompt. That's how Power BI has connected with the AI. Secondly, on the co-pilot part, so a lot of reports, if you want to articulate it to the stakeholders, and how it can basically help you navigate and help you make these visuals better. So these are the tools where the tool is connected with the internet power, with the like AI stuff. So that's how we can make use of it. It has come in the latest version.
Yeah, I think on the BA side also there is a similar synonym and similar leverage that we are taking as a BA. A lot of things we use on the AI side, GPT side to basically accelerate our work. The same thing is happening on the product side. There are many tools that creates a prototype automatically by just feeding in the right prompts with the right information, give them the context, give them the background, give them the output, give them what you want, give them the necessary information about your color, background, font size, and it will generate working prototype. And the same thing happens with Jira stories. Same thing happens with BRD, PRD. In fact, market analysis also can be done. I think if you use wisely, as you go back, as you said, ethical AI
Yeah.
and taking care of the cybersecurity thing within the AI space is so critical in today's world as we are growing. We are using it, but we are not looking forward to controlling the bad side of the data that people can misuse. I'm sure many companies have the cybersecurities in place. With that, actually, I have one clarification question.
Okay.
Uh, there is a lot of term associated to data nowadays, called as data analyst, data engineer, data consultant, data AI. Can you elaborate like why these so many things? What could be the primary difference between them?
It's all like part of the same family, but they are just different members, and they have their own particular skill set as an expertise which they bring to the table. So when I say all these things, they have the common first name as data. So basic knowledge of data is common to all. Like it is expected that you should know SQL, you should know your tool for all these titles that you have just mentioned. So when it comes to data analysis, it's more on the visualization or the business intelligence side. So the three tools which are very imperative for a data analyst is SQL, Power BI or Tableau also, and Excel or Python. so that you are able to query your data, you're able to make something meaningful out of it. It would be just a number, it would be just a child without a parent if you don't know how to articulate it nicely. So that's the work of a data analyst. It has to do more with the dealing with stakeholders or the business or even your scrum masters, that okay, if I've presented this report, and this I've done, and this I do currently also. Whenever I create a dashboard, every 2 weeks I show it to my client. So the prompts that I get is from a data engineer. My data engineer has written that script on maybe Snowflake, Azure, SQL, Oracle, any background. The basic query is how you're using a structured query language. So he's given me that query set, he's given me the data. Now I have picked up data from a data engineer, I am putting it into my report, giving a meaningful shape and presenting it to my client. So when it comes to data consultant and BA, I think has a very thin line between them. Because I was also a data consultant and data analyst both in my career, and I've also started as an SQL engineer. So I think in this 8 to 9 years of my career, I've been in three different sections. So engineering and scientists are all about coding. They are basically the people, they are actually the brain. As we say, CPU is the brain of a computer. Data scientist slash data engineer basically are the brains of anything data. Because if your data is not correct, the numbers are not coming correctly from the background, if your base is not strong, you develop any beautiful building out of it, it will not sustain, it will not make any meaningful sense. So data has to be correct. That language coordination is very important, but everybody should know everything. There's one very common thing which I have, the very famous quote which I've used and which really works in our department is, you have to be jack of all trades, master of none. As far as a data analyst, I can vouch for it, but oftentimes better than none. So you should know everything in bits and pieces. That is very important. But if there is one tool you're completely dedicated to, that is how a data scientist or an engineer would come up. Like they have to be the masters of the game. They are all about numbers and coding and using these languages, whether it's Python, R, PySpark, anything. So that's the basic differences.
In today's world, if anybody wants to take on the data role, what would be your piece of advice, and how should they basically take it from the junior level fresher, or maybe a mid senior or an expert? Where do you see the career graph going right from the start if anyone wants to start from in the field of data?
I would just give them this. I would give this answer in a pointers. So first of all, the person has to make their SQL base very strong. I'm not saying do a extremely complicated coding or create, I don't know how, like a 1,000 line stored procedure. No, but you should know at least how you can update, delete, how you can modify your data, how you can basically take out some numbers out of it, how you can basically meaningfully retrieve a query, that you can connect those two tables. You should know the concept of joins, you should know what union and union all means, you should know what a stored procedure is. Fourthly, how you should optimize your query, and for optimization you should know the concept of indexing. If you know these five terminologies I've just mentioned, you will be good in SQL, and you will be able to crack any interview that comes up with SQL. You can practice the coding questions on Lead Code or HackerRank. They gives you a great exposure. Okay, it could be DBT, it could be MySQL, it could be Oracle. You can choose it from the tool. SSMS, which is SQL Server, is the most famous and the efficient one, but each has its own advantages and disadvantages. So, having said that, I'll just mention you one disadvantage which I've experienced in my life. So, Power BI is case sensitive, but SQL is not. So if your source data in Power BI was SQL, and this has happened with one of in my conflicts with the data engineer. So this person changed the table column names, and how he changed. He just changed from a small letter to a capital letter because he thought it doesn't matter. He was just typing. He was creating a script, and he made it in all capital letters. So when I refreshed my query, when I updated my tool to make a report, it was all errors. It was all blank. I said, "What happened? Like, what blunder did I do?" So when I did those analysis for like 48 hours, because didn't have
Disaster.
I didn't have the access to the engineering tool. I didn't have access to the Azure production workspace. I didn't have that access. So I said, what is this happening? We got into this meeting, this war room. I said, what is happening? So they were like, because the tool is throwing errors, so everybody's like, oh, you must have done some mistake in Power BI only.
Because that's a presentation.
I was being questioned that, oh, because your tool is creating error, so that means you're the problem. I said, no, let me see it to it and what's happening. So then I said, can you please share your screen, and I want to see how what changes you've made to the data, because I got to know this person was changing the data for something. So I said, oh, and then I compared the letters. I said, you have just changed the column headers. Just the column headers from small to capital can create the entire report into errors, because Power BI doesn't understand this if it is capital A or small a. So,
But it is coming from the same Microsoft family.
exactly, I don't know. I think I should write a Microsoft feedback to this one, that can you please either you make Power BI case sensitive or just change one of the tools. So this happens only with that tool. Otherwise, everything is good now. And I think the changes have come up in the latest version. But I'm telling you, when you were asking me about the steps, so this basically I got to this memory lane, and that was in 2021, I think. So it was 2 3 years ago. So yeah, I was telling you the SQL 5 terminologies, which is very important. That is first step. Second, you should know a visualization tool. It could be Tableau, it could be Power BI. With Power BI, it's like, because it's a whole Microsoft ecosystem, so it's more easier, it's more connected. Like if you have an Apple iPhone, if you have a Mac, you don't need to download iTunes separately. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. Means
Absolutely,
that
it does.
there's no Bluetooth in iPhone, so it's like you want to transfer photos to an Android and vice versa. It becomes a problem, right? So these kind of things would not happen, because right now you're not using it personally, you're using it on commercial basis. That's why the same ecosystem will always give you an advantage, and it's cheaper than Tableau also, of course. It's cost effective, and if you want to create many dashboards, if you want to create many reports, it's easy. And everybody wants to make life easier. The project managers want to make the lives easier, and the clients want to make lives easier. So that should be the end goal. And third, of course, the Python is coming up, and the basics, how to at least schedule a job using a Python, how you can basically connect one source to another. Because with Python, you have a lot of records, lot of millions of records you can basically study, which sometimes become a limitation to any other tool. So then that's how the basic you should know to do become a data analyst. And be consistent. Just take any 100 of rows data, create it on your Excel, just write all your family chart, okay, or maybe write your monthly expenses or your annual expenses, and then create a dashboard out of it. Oh, how did I perform? Well, how is my credit card looking? What's going to be my credit score? You
That's
can
that's a
basically
smart
see
that's a
it.
smart use case.
Yeah. And it's because it's related to you, so when a personal thing is related, now your person gets more interested also. So that would up your game. That's something which I would like to share. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for your valuable insights, your conversation, your story, uh, the AI part, the data part. I'm sure all the audience and the listeners to this podcast will have valuable sense of what data analysis is today, how it's actually been performed in the rest of the world, no matter which country you're working at, whether you're working in India, whether you're working in North America, whether you're working in Europe, it doesn't matter. Data analysis is the same. You need to know the foundations, you need to know the basics. Work actually makes you learn. Education of course adds credibility, certifications adds credibility, but you need to be passionate about data. You need to learn on the go. And I think this is what I learned today, that everybody works in harmony as a team, and produce a result that is beneficial for the client or the customer, that adds value, especially in terms of data. When large number of data is converted into insights, a huge team of data, BA, QAs, business, subject matter experts, all are involved together to get that insight. Am I right?
Absolutely right. You have basically understood everything correctly. Yeah. You've been a very, very good listener.
No, thank you, Haveen, so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and we'll definitely keep in touch. And I hope it's okay if my viewers reach out to you on LinkedIn for
Yeah, sure.
any mentoring or coaching or any guidance in case they want to reach out to you.
100%. In my LinkedIn headshot also written, please feel free to reach out.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take
Yeah.
care. Talk soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Bye bye.